Hello and welcome to me making an entire cosplay of a new League of Legends character, Aurora. Aurora appears in the Spirit of Hearth home event and is a bunny vestiaire, so I knew instantly I wanted to make her as I'm very normal about bunny characters. I started this cosplay off by making her bunny ears. I first made a paper pattern to get the size and shape correct. This was then transferred to some warbler. I like using warbler as a base for animal ears like this, as you can make a strong, stable shape that will stay upright without being too heavy. As warbler is a thermoplastic, I heat it up with my heat gun so that it can be then shaped to be more naturally rabbit ear shaped. I then cut the same pattern from a faux fur fabric. I then use an all-purpose glue to adhere the fur to the warbler. Once dry, I then sew the raw edges of the two pieces of fur together. There are lots of colours on the fur of Aurora's ears. As the tips are white, I've used a white fur, but this means I need to colour the rest of the fur. I don't own an airbrush, which would be the best approach, so instead I'm going to dye the fur with some very pigmented watercolour. After the ears, I then move on to making the main part of the costume, which is the massive floor-length cape. I of course start this process by making the pattern from scratch. In case you want to mock one up for yourself, this is what the pattern looks like. The length of the pattern is from my shoulder to the floor, plus seam allowance. The neck is extra wide for making the massive hood. And then the shoulder is my shoulder span with a natural curve so that it drapes slightly fitted. If you want a center back seam, you should cut 4 pieces of the cape, otherwise you can cut one on the fold and 2 separate. Before I could start, I had to go get fabrics from the second-hand store, where I managed to get silk dupioni for the dress. Oh, and I also got a cat. Anyway, back to the costume. Once I had my fabric, I then cut the cape out. Once the fabric was cut, I began to sew the seams together. Honestly, this was pretty easy as there was only 2 pretty straight seams to sew. See, after the 2 seams are together, I already have a wonderfully swooshy cape. I then appliqued on the 2 gold lines using my gold rainbow foil leather. I made them a little bit thicker so that you can see them easy. Then to finish the edges of the cape, I'm just going to bind them in some of that silk dupioni I found. Now it's time to make the hood. I got the perfect pattern after much struggle. It looks bizarre, but trust me, it works. I sew all of the seams together, and then this is what it looks like. It still looks a bit odd, but trust me, it's going to work so well. I then pin the hood to the neckline and sew it on. The hood is backed out so that it is nice and fluffy on the inside too. So I then slip stitch it down with my little assistant helping me so much. It's then time for me to add on the fur trim. Spoiler alert, I am going to change this fur. So a little fabrication tangent, but the way we draw fur versus how fur actually works is very different. And Aurora's hood is very fluffy, so I was like, I'll just add in more volume by making a load of additional spikes, knowing the whole time in the back of my head this could look cartoony in a way I didn't want it to very fast. And well, I spent a whole day making these spikes and it just looked cartoony in a bad way and I hated it. I think coming from a fashion design and fabrication background, I much prefer to interpret my fabrications as, okay, how would this actually look in real life? Rather than, can I do something unconventional so it'll look exactly like the illustration? I think each individual artist has a side they lean towards more. And maybe this fabrication method would work a lot better in someone else's style. It's just not for me. So yeah, I ripped all of the fur off. However, please look at my cat again. Thank you, she is so cute. But anyway, I added on a new, more naturally textured fur and weathered it to look like a pelt from a snowy region. Once the cape was finished, it was time to move on to making the dress. So you can't actually see most of the dress, so I just kind of guessed what it should probably look like based on what I could see of the images available to me. I made the pattern a really straight cut with bust darts, as it appears the dress isn't particularly form-fitting. I also made a lot of the pattern amendments when the dress was on my body, just because of the style of the dress and to get all of the draping correct. The most fun part of Aurora's dress design is the fur trim on part of the dress. You can only see it in one image, so it's a detail that might go missed otherwise. In terms of finishings on the dress, it was finished in a very similar way to the cape, where I utilized a lot of bindings for a clean finish. Once the dress was done, I started making the gloves. I didn't do gusseted gloves, but instead the trace around the hand, as it's a lot easier to get this fit right on a skin-tight glove. And of course, Fern was assisting me with this part. On one of Aurora's wrists, she has a big gold bracelet. I decided to make this from warbler wrapped in gold leather. I did this because I'd be able to heat shape the warbler to the shape of my wrist. Once shaped, I could glue the leather down to the warbler. The leather just gives a much faster and cleaner finish than going through the entire painting process for warbler. I then styled the wig. Again, there isn't really a singular clean image of her hair, so I kind of just styled something similar to the best of my ability. Just lots of teasing and heat styling. I'm honestly not amazing at wigs, but I'm trying to improve, so I just did the best to my ability with this one. Finally, I modeled all the little accessories in Blender, ready to 3D print them. If you've seen some of my other recent videos, you'll know 3D modeling is something I'm learning at the moment, and I definitely felt fairly confident making these little accessories. And with that, the cosplay was done.